Okay, welcome back to the Success, Money, and Marriage podcast. I'm Steve Siebold.
And I'm Dawn Siebold.
And today we're going to be talking about being in business together as we usually do as a couple. And the topic for this show is who makes the final decision when decisions have to be made? So what are your first thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's, it depends. It depends. It just depends.
Depends on what?
It depends on the decision that has to be made is on.
So what's an
like
example?
if we're going to take the dogs out, we flip a coin, paper, scissors, rocks, to see who takes them out at night or in the morning.
Oh, yeah, great.
That's how we make that decision.
Fantastic.
Paper, scissors, rocks.
Okay.
It's more fun. It's more fun than flipping a coin.
Can we talk about business decisions?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, I think it depends. If it's on my lane, then I think I can make the final decision. If it's on your lane, you make the final decision.
Okay. Is that it? Is it that clear to you?
It's very clear. I think because we give each other, we said that before on another podcast that, I'll offer as some suggestions for your lane. And at the end of the day, I trust you to make them. And hopefully you've trusted me over these years to make them for me.
Okay. Well, I have a little bit different take on that. I think that's probably simplified. That's probably pretty close. But when you're making big decisions in business, right? When you're a small business, every decision's a big decision.
Right.
So you have to be very careful about how you do that. And especially if you have two people. Now, and if you have employees, then you're making decisions effectively for employees and other people and customers as well. So you have to be very careful. I think it's a process where, and that's one of the things we've always done. It's funny because, we've done this stuff for so long, yet we've never really talked about, we talk about it with each other when you're inside of it, you're living inside of it. It's one thing, but when you're teaching it to someone or you're sharing what your process is, well, it turns out you have a process. You just don't know it because you do it intuitively. Right. So what we do is we go through time. I mean, we take time to make big decisions as probably anyone would. But I think we go through a process. It seems to me, and I'll tell you what I think it is, and you respond. And this is not necessarily the only way to do it. And we're not saying we're the experts on this. We're just two people that have had, a lot of experience, building businesses and had failures and some very large successes as well. So there's a wide and failures and wide range of experience and in between things, businesses that just sort of, rode along and didn't have any incredible failure or success at the same time. So in 38 years, you sort of, experience everything, or it seems as though we've experienced everything. Right. So, for example, when we decided that we were going to make the move, or we were looking at making the move, let's say to Bona Allen Mansion.
Right.
And so we had looked at it. We had an office. We had about 20 employees in an office in Atlanta. We had an office in Florida, and we wanted to see if we were going to consolidate. And then we had some people that were working outside of offices at home with us, and we decided we were going to consolidate and move all the way up to Atlanta because we'd been living in Palm Beach, Florida, during the wintertime, and Lake Lanier up in Georgia in the summertime, and splitting our time. That's difficult to do with employees because you're always somewhere else, it feels like, right? So we opened an office in Atlanta, north of Atlanta, and then we had this opportunity through a friend of yours to look at this historic property.
Tennis friend of mine.
A tennis friend, that's true.
Just another one more reason I play tennis.
And of course, that's the reason you play tennis, right, Don? So we have business opportunities. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
You're just willing to sacrifice everything for the business, aren't you?
One of us has to do it.
You're just selfless.
I'm just making the comment that it was a tennis friend.
You're just selfless.
It was a tennis friend.
It was a tennis friend. That's true. You do get points for that. But right away, of course, we toured the property, and this gentleman who will rename, we won't say his name because we don't have his permission, but great guy. He's an investor, and he said, "Oh, we got the purpose." We told him we were looking for an office building, which we were, a bigger office building, because we were expanding, we were growing at that point. This is pre-pandemic and pre-craziness in the world, beyond the normal craziness. And he said, "You got to look at this place I've got. It's a commercial property. It's called the Bona Allen Mansion." And right away, you said that you had toured this place.
I knew it. Yeah. I grew up 25 minutes south of here, and so I know the area very well. And when I was in fourth grade, we took a field trip to the Bona Allen Mansion at the time.
Was Lincoln president when you were in fourth grade, or was he assassinated afterward? I know it's during that time.
At the time, the city owned the Bona Allen Mansion, so they made it like a historical place for kids to be able to come. So it was kind of cool. So I'd been there a couple of times, but my first time was when I was in fourth grade.
Yeah, I had never been. Why, weirdo,
of course.
The face.
Okay.
It was after Lincoln. Fine. I mean, I knew it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. We're talking 50 years.
That's
a half a century.
It is a long time ago.
It's a long time.
God, it was 50 years ago.
Dinosaurs were already extinct, but it was close.
Stop it.
You know, you didn't see dinosaurs, but you read about them in all the papers, I'm sure. But anyway, so right away the guy said, "Oh my God, it's fabulous property," and I'd never seen it or been in it, but I'd heard about this place they called the Mansion, and people called it the Mansion. Well, when it was built in 1911, it was literally one of the biggest homes and private homes in all of Georgia. So people in this area called it the Mansion. And so remember, he took us, and Don said, "I don't know how this is a private home of the great industrialist Bonaparte Allen, who built the biggest leather tannery business in the world, which stayed in business for 100 years. Right. The guy was brilliant, and his family was brilliant. And this was his private home in Beaufort, Georgia, north of Atlanta. So Jim, the gentleman that you played tennis with, super nice guy, big investor in the area. He said, "You got to see it." And Dawn said, I don't know that this really would work at any level. It's we need an office building. This is a 6-acre property with 5 buildings on the property. They're 100 years old. It probably needs a lot of renovation. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to work. And remember, I said, "Well, let's go see it."
Yeah.
Why not? And he said, "Okay, let's go see it." And then,
take the puppy dog home.
Yeah, take the puppy home for the weekend.
Take him home for the weekend.
Bring him back on Monday morning.
Take the car for a drive.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Take the boat. Take the Malibu.
All right. So tell him what happened after that. After we saw we walked around the property.
Oh, was it? That was it.
That's all you have is that was it?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, when you said we'd take a long time, we don't take a long time to make decisions.
Well,
we're very decisive.
How long did it take on that one?
We're kidding? Pretty decisive.
That one took a long. I'm talking about big decisions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do our research. I mean, it takes a while. I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, where I'm going is the process. Okay. So this was a big decision. It could be any decision where you decide who makes the final decision, right? Because you're making so many decisions during the course of a business, and any number of them can put you out of business when you're small, because obviously the capital resources that we have as a small business are much less than a large company that can take billion-dollar losses and survive. So anyway, I'll tell the story then, since you don't think you know where I'm going.
That would be great, because I have no idea where you're going.
Well, okay. All right. So I'll tell the story. So long story short, we walked around the property, and it was, it's an amazing property. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I mean, it was owned by, if the guy was alive today, he would be one of the richest people in the world. I mean, he would be a multi-billionaire. So, it's incredible property. And I was blown away. It had a majestic feel to it. And I kept saying, "Don, this is unbelievable." And then the guy said, "Well, what do you think? What do you think?" And I said, "Well, this is so far out of, the size range. It's 6 acres, 5 buildings. We don't need 6 acres. We don't need 5 buildings. It's a home that had to be converted to an office." He said, "Well, it's commercial property." And so he went through the whole thing. He said, "Just imagine, though, in terms of positioning in the 9th largest, outside the 9th largest city in America, Atlanta," he said, you own a place called the Mansion, which certainly doesn't hurt your street credibility in business as a small business, and with leaders and companies and which with whom you work and you're selling to." And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. He was a good salesperson.
Very good.
And so we walked around. We were kind of blown away, and we just looked at him. Basically, said, "This is just the price was out of our range, and the size, not just the price, but I thought the maintenance would be unbelievably expensive,
right?
Because the rose garden itself is huge. I mean, everything is oversized because it's a very large. The main house is 9,000 square feet. Then it's got a guest house. Then it's got a carriage house, and this whole thing is like 13,000 square feet under air. So it's a lot. For us, it's a lot. And so right away I said, well, if we did this and we did that, if we move some of our assets around, remember, at lunch, we went to lunch, because we told him no right away. We said, "Hey, this is not going to, there's no way. It's above our budget. Plus, it doesn't really, it just doesn't make, it's just too large. I couldn't, get past that." And we were like, no. And then I said to Dawn at lunch, I said, "Well, what if we move some things around?" And remember, you were like, no way, not going to happen. Remember this? So tell them about that. Tell them what you were thinking.
Well, I mean, it wasn't necessary. It was something that you wanted, and I think that you should share that this was also very similar to a picture that Steve has had on his vision board for as long as I've known you. It was to own an estate and to have a tennis court. And so we've had that vision board up we probably had it up for 25 years. Similar pictures of what.
Pretty much, yeah.
So when he was asking me about buying this, I knew this was not coming from logic, because we certainly didn't need the Bona Allen Mansion to grow our business. It was coming from emotion and his vision board. So when I first said no, financially, we already had our main residence in Palm Beach. South Palm Beach was, a huge house. Our lake house was a huge house. And so I just didn't see it. I didn't see how we were going to make it happen.
You were like, no, not going to happen. No way. Can't be done. You were just adamant. I remember how adamant you were. Because I didn't know how serious I was. I thought it was a big stretch.
I thought it was to fulfill your vision board, and we weren't really going to be happy here.
Well, I always wanted a house with a tennis court on it because I was a tennis player as a kid and
in a
played
state
professionally. And because we had these homes,
right?
These tremendous homes over the years, and like you said, they're large homes and all that, and they're beautiful places. But there's a difference in my mind between a large home and an estate. Estate has property. Estate has multiple buildings. Estate has a tennis court and a pool. And in my head, I mean, I'm just making this up. This was in my head because I had grown up.
Yeah, but the timing was really bad. I mean, the timing was really bad. I mean, we owned 4 or 5 properties in Florida that we hadn't sold. The timing was just bad. And the only reason why I even wanted it is for your vision board. But logically, it didn't make sense at the time for us to get it. And that is a big plug for vision boards for people who don't believe in vision boards. We've pretty much lived our entire lives on vision boards and goal setting. So a big plug for people who use vision boards. But that would be the only reason why I wanted it, was to fulfill your vision. But it was bad timing, and we did not need this house.
Yeah, just to digress for a second, when you talk about vision boards, people always laugh at vision boards.
Right.
I tell a story in speeches about Time Magazine when they interviewed me a second or third time, and they laughed at when they went to the lake house and saw my vision boards. And the guy at Time Magazine, he's got a crew of people interviewing me. They got cameras running, they got still cameras, and he's laughing at me, the reporter, because we had 4 vision boards in the gym, and so people laugh about this. They think it's some joke, but it's just a visual representation of where you're going in your future. You're trying to embed your consciousness with pictures. It's like psychology 101.
Right,
like
exactly.
a first-year psychology student knows what you're doing.
Right.
But people think it's some game or some nonsense, like you're putting pictures on a board that they go, well, that's what the Time Magazine guy said.
Yeah.
He said, what do you think these things are just going to the car is going to magically appear in the
No,
driveway?
he was like, you really take out magazine and cut out little pictures.
You cut them out, then you paste them on there like a kindergarten. That's what he said to me.
He did. And it was very funny.
And I laughed. I said, I wasn't kind of laughing. I was just like, I was kind of incredulous because I'm thinking, you're in my house interviewing me from Time Magazine. You're laughing at me. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, people think, but I remember, anyway, I was going to digress into this story. I thought this was funny. And you remember this well. I know that when my dad was a bricklayer and very pragmatic guy and very bright guy, but very, very middle-class mindset in terms of business and work and that kind of thing. And I remember he used to laugh at the vision boards, and it's kind of the same kind. He wasn't like mean about it, but he kind of thought it was nonsense. Yeah. And then when the things in the vision board started popping one after another, I remember telling him one day in their apartment in Florida.
Right.
I remember saying, I'm kind of doing a new vision board, writing my vision. He goes, well, be careful what you write. Be careful what you put on the board.
What you cut out.
Because every damn thing you put on there seems to come true. And he goes, I never say anything like that. And so he was kind of a believer in some way.
As much as he could.
As much as he could. He's like, just be careful what you write down.
All right, so let's get back to the decision.
Well, okay, so you were like, adamant, and I get you were right. I mean, it wasn't logical or anything like that. But then I started thinking, well, we could do everything here we ever wanted to do, and all the what do we own, like 5 or 6 properties at that point?
Right.
Waterfront properties, golf course really nice places. And I thought, well, what if
so just add one more to the list.
Well, no, what I was thinking is,
made no sense.
But what I know, but what I was, it didn't make sense capital wise to do it. But what I was thinking was, what if we sold off the properties, all of them, and we put it all into one, and then we consolidate into one, even though it's larger than the other ones and more expensive and all that. And then, of course, the repairs, all the roofs had to be replaced, and the roofs are gigantic, or the big one is. And so all these things. But then remember, we basically said, okay, we looked at the numbers. You were pretty adamant. I was like, we could do this, we could do that. You were like, no. You shut down. You go, no. And then we were working in Costa Rica, doing some project or something. And I remember we were down there. We were fighting about it the whole time because you kept saying, the price is way too high. They went way too. There's no way we can afford it. Doesn't make any sense. And then I remember you were fighting. And then you went to take a nap in the hotel. And I remember going to the little lobby there in San Jose, in CR. And I remember thinking that Marriott there in San Jose, and I was sitting in there thinking, so this is not going to happen, but it's got to be worth it at a certain price because this is a one-off property.
You're a bully, is what you are.
I'm not a bully. That's not being a bully. That's being pragmatic in something you want, And so I remember you were sleeping. I thought, okay, well, if we can get it for a certain price, if it's the price that's the obstacle, well, let's talk about the price. Okay, let me stop for a second. What I'm trying to do is when you're negotiating, on a final decision or making a decision on something big. For us, it was big. For some of you guys, it might be small, but for us, us is big. And, I thought, okay, if we could get the sellers, it was two guys, your friend and then his business partner. If we could get the sellers down to a certain price, which I didn't think we could do, but if we could, the housing market was pretty strong back then.
Right.
And of course, it's crazy now, but it was still strong. Then, then it would be worth, at some price it would be worth acquiring, is my point. And because I thought, okay, then you woke up and I remember saying, well, what if we get it for this price? And you go, well, then we fought a little more, I think. And then I said, well, what about this price? And I lowered it. And you said, well, yeah, if we could, it was stealing it practically. And I remember then you go, well, yeah, maybe at that price. Okay, so now I've got an in at least. I'm in the game. I've got some. Now I got to try to sell it to these guys. That's not bully. It's strategy.
No, it was not. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so, so we went back and forth. And finally we said, you agreed. And you said, okay, well, if we get it for that price, then okay. But that's probably not going to happen. But I didn't think it would happen either. Then we thought, all right, well, we'll give it a shot. And then, so you remember what happened next? Or I'm just telling the whole story.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we made the decision to give them an offer and we held to the decision and they came back and said no. And then we were like, nope, we're not going to go another bit higher. And they came back and said yes.
Oh, okay. So you're just going to fast forward this whole thing. What I'm trying to take them through, Dawn.
I'm trying to help you, Steve.
Tennis player.
I'm really trying to help you.
I'm trying to take them through the process. You can't teach someone by telling them, yeah, they said no, then they said yes, and we lived happily ever after. That doesn't teach anyone how to make decisions in business. All right?
Okay, teach me.
So what we did
Apparently, I don't know.
Okay. I'm just taking over the show because you just suck at this.
That would be great.
You suck at this show.
Can I get a cocktail?
This is your worst show.
Okay. I have no idea where you're going with this.
You've been playing tennis all day. I think your head's like not there. You're not here.
Go ahead.
It's a little
Tell me the
embarrassing.
story. Teach me how to do it.
Okay. All right. I'm walking them through. So basically, we had a number. Okay. And I would recommend this as a process to anyone making a large capital investment in your business. And so I got her to agree to the number. Now I got to get them to agree. So I remember presenting it on a conference call. You were in my office and we presented it to them on a conference call and they said, there's no way we would sell it for that little. We have way more into it than we would sell it for that. And then I remember saying, well, that, I'm sure it's worth more than we're offering. We just cannot afford more than that number. Literally, it's not you, it's us. I said, so, it's that old breakup thing. It's not you, it's me. And it wasn't. We couldn't afford more, frankly. I mean, certainly not much. And if we could at all. And they said, well, we just can't do it. We said, well, we appreciate it, but that's us. They said, well, what about, can we negotiate? We're like, we don't have any more money than that. That's our whole deal. And that was pretty close to true.
Right.
But we stuck to it. And then we just said, okay, we're just not going to do it. This went on roughly for 6 months. I mean, on and off. This was a long process. Because again, for us, it was a big decision. I just went to a big decision because there's more moving parts.
Right.
And then we went through then we went back and forth and everything and got some other plans going and they came back and they kept inching the price down, but not to our level that we could afford. We kept saying, we don't have it. And I'm just telling you, we don't have the money. I mean, there's no way we can do it. We're not going to a bank and getting the money. So that's not going to happen. We just cannot afford it. Thank you very much. We think it's a phenomenal property. We think someone with more money than us should own it. And because the truth of it was, we knew it was going to take millions of dollars to bring it up to speed. It was not the price of the property.
No,
it was the price of the.
It was $500,000 just to get it dry.
Just to get it dry. It was wet. All the buildings were wet. Yeah. They had water in all the buildings. And water, if you know anything about construction or drainage, you have to learn a lot about water. Water is the most dangerous thing to any property, any home. And so all the buildings, all 5 buildings had water in them. So they were not inhabitable.
Right.
So what we talked about was, okay, the price of something typically is not, a big property is not, and we knew this from other properties, that it's not the price, it's the renovations. It's the maintenance, it's the upkeep, it's the things that break down. And when it's 10 times as large as a normal property, you have 10 times the cost and 10 times the price. Everything is $25,000 every time something breaks. We had a pipe break that one time, 2 years ago on the driveway, and I think the thing was like $17,000 to dig up the driveway because it's such a long pipe. It's like 700 feet long or something.
And it's 100 years old.
It's 100 years old. So everything you do is insanely expensive. And so that's what we were factoring. It wasn't the price of the property. That was not that big of a problem. It was, we knew we were in for millions of dollars. Like we did. We spent over $500,000 just getting it dry. Then we we had it all painted and Then the employees came in. We had 20 employees in the building. And then we still had renovations to do. So
we still do. We're still working on it.
Still do. It's millions of dollars.
We're still working on it.
So for us, that's a lot. Again, for a big company, it wouldn't be, but for a small company. So long story short, we got down to our baseline. Our baseline, personally, I think as a couple, where we were not going to kill each other or say, we can't go beyond that. So in this case, the final decision, because it's so large, would be both of ours.
Right.
I would never go beyond what you agreed to, and you would
Right.
never do the same thing with me, because it's not like buying a phone or something. I mean, you're talking about something that's life changing.
Right.
Literally, this is a decades long really commitment could be. So we went. So long story short, as you said, they finally came back within
Right.
6 months, and they said, look, if you want to do it, we'll do it right now. And we said, do it right now, and we signed the papers like within a week. We signed. Remember?
Right. Well, we didn't want them to change their mind.
We didn't want to change their mind, and we held to it. And frankly, we didn't steal it or anything like that. I mean, but it was a fair price. It was fair. It wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like the decisions on the big decisions on taking them through the process, and I really sorry I didn't. But I also do like to know. I think for every couple, when it comes to money, have that benchmark. I mean, or that line that you have in the sand to go. Okay, I can't spend over this without talking to you.
Sure.
And I know, I feel very comfortable spending under $500 without coming to you. But if it's over $500, I'm going to give Steve a call and say, hey, I got this pair of shoes I want to buy.
Well, yeah, and I think people,
not a pair of shoes. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm
yeah,
just
right.
kidding. You're very serious today.
I know I'm very serious.
Okay.
You're
But
just,
I think when it comes to money in marriage, I think you have to have a line. I think you have to say, okay,
Yeah.
I feel comfortable, whatever that might be, $50 for some people. But once it gets over that point, have that respect to get the advice and the the approval, if you will, of the other person.
I like to snake some things in there under the radar you don't see. The problem is she gets all the bills, so eventually I get caught.
Yes.
So I'm like the worst person to sneak things in to buy.
It's not-
Because you always go, what was this charge in American Express for? And I'm like, yeah.
Honey, it's not eventually.
Then I got my
It's
tail, I
not
gotta run up to
eventually.
my-
You always get caught.
Well, because you see all the bills.
Well, then
I need my own
stop.
account.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
My
all
own
for that.
credit card.
I'm all for that.
My own account.
I think so too.
That you know nothing about.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to need some funding.
That would be great.
Can you help with funding? We got to start another GoFundMe account for
I
me.
know, right?
I need some excess capital.
Okay.
That you know nothing about.
Perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have, can you
Yeah.
small loan?
Nope.
See, there's a decision right there.
No, but no, I like what you did. I mean, I thought I didn't get where you were going, but that was a process. And I think if you are the spouse trying to convince the other spouse, do like Steve did, who did months of homework and months of research of finding out exactly what was wrong with the house and talking to the neighbors and going downtown and looking up the records. And I mean, you did a hard sell on me. So for some advice for those of you out there trying to convince your spouse to spend money that is not absolutely necessary, do some homework.
Yeah, well, another thing that helped also was, and this was not really planned. I mean, I wish I could take credit for it, but I really did. We have a good friend named Sam Harris, who's an architect, and he specializes in historic buildings, and he's an expert. He's been doing it for 30 years or whatever it is. He does it for the government, and he's local here. And he had come into some of our properties before, like in Florida, and we had him come down to Florida and Georgia and whatever, and look at properties that we were investing in. And he's very conservative, and so which was great because that's what you want. But he'd almost always go, "Really, you guys?
Every
Seriously?
single time.
This place is a dump. You can't." And there were these beautiful properties, but he'd be like, "Well," I'm like, "Why, Sam? Why this time?" He's like, "Well, see, the pavement's uneven from one building to the other.
We didn't
whatever.
see any of that.
The driveway.
We didn't see any of it.
But we didn't. No. I mean, we had no. That's why we'd always ask.
We picked old houses.
Did he ever say yes
You
to
picked
us?
old girlfriends back in high school.
But he never said yes.
Not one house.
It was always like, this is not even close. So
it
he
was
comes to
awful.
Bone Allen Mansion, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, he's going to kill it. He's just going to kill it. He must have walked around for 3 hours,
Right.
4 hours, if I remember right. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
He walked around. I remember him coming out and he said, you know what it would cost to rebuild this place?
Right.
He goes, no one could afford it. It'd be millions and millions of dollars. He said, it was then, to build it, it was, well, probably not millions then, but he said it would just be insane. He goes, this place is a tank. It'll be here 300 years from now.
Right.
And he never said that. He used to always say, this place is a junk. You don't understand construction, Steve, blah, 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 blah. And he'd always knock it down. And of course, we wanted his opinion because he's
And we
conservative.
trusted it. And we trusted
of course,
it.
we
Yeah.
trust
It's
him
a long time
implicitly. And
frame.
he saved us tons of money because he steered us away from office buildings. Remember the office building in Gainesville? He's like, no way. And we're like, come on.
We don't pick out stuff very well.
Yeah, I guess apparently not. But he loved this place.
When it comes to property, we kind of suck at that.
Well, but he said it's going to be millions of dollars to do it. There's no question about it. He says, but you couldn't put too much money in this place. He goes, I mean, it's world class. It's literally a world class property. He says you couldn't build a house any better than this. I mean, the doors are 4 inches thick. I mean, the walls are, God knows, 3 bricks thick or whatever he said.
Right.
He explained, he walked around for hours with us explaining this. He goes, this is what super wealthy people 100 years ago, this is what they built.
Right.
They could afford anything. They're like billionaires of today, and so that was one of the things that really boosted my
I want to know how much you paid Sam to walk around for 3 hours and tell me that.
Did not pay him a penny.
Okay.
Might have been some under the table things,
I was
some
gonna
favors
say,
and
okay.
stuff. But other than that, not too
I
much.
have a feeling.
No cash.
I have a feeling something went on there. No,
But
I love it. I'm teasing.
But that was probably one of the biggest decisions we ever made.
Right.
So we went back and forth. But to your point, on a serious note, I think that, you make a really good point that, and I'm not sure, I have something, like you said, $500 in your head about like spending money. Again, we go back to the money subject because that's
it's important.
It's the lifeblood of business, let's be honest. I mean, it's not your purpose for being in business, but if you don't have it, it's like blood in the body. You're dead. So you have to maintain it. You have to be conservative, and you have to have a lot of cash on hand all the time.
Right.
Because business goes up and business goes down, as we all found out with COVID.
Right.
And sometimes it just disappears altogether, instantly around the world in one day. And so, but to your point about the $500, I don't think I have like an amount in my head that I'll spend, but I won't spend, very much more than that, I don't think, without saying, hey, what do you think about this or whatever, or bribing you in some way, or buying you just tennis shoes or something. Some way I can get her softened up, like maybe get her drunk or feed her some tequila or something one day, or she likes beer. She 3-4 beers, she'll say yes to almost anything, which is really convenient.
Stephen, a lot of people like beer. You say it, you say it like
no, it's fine. I'm not putting down beer.
It's like it's a rarity that someone likes beer. A lot of people like beer.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm not putting down beer.
So to finish this segment.
Did you have something in mind when you said that?
No, but I will say how I decide on what beer to drink depends on the time of day and what restaurant I'm at. So if we're talking about decisions, I'm just trying to wrap it up.
Oh, that's really funny.
I'm just trying to wrap it up.
You're a comedian. You should really do stand-up comedy.
Well,
you're really funny. Ha, ha, ha. Can we get back to the topic? Not beer? Is that a beer show, Dawn?
Well, I'm just saying that when you're talking about decisions, there's, each circumstance is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's my point is, every time, I think when you're working with a partner or your husband or your wife, then make sure you know what those circumstances are. Make sure you're understanding what they're coming from. And when you're explaining yourself, make sure you explain where you're coming from before you're making that end decision. So it really is coming from circumstances and not just, in my opinion, not one spouse should make the answer for both. I
agree. And the last thing I would say about it is, I think that at the end of the day, like all things in business, but large capital investments, again, in relation to your size of your business and your wallet and all the rest of it. But in relation to that, I mean, or in reference to that, I would say, the bottom line, the most important thing is to be in alignment with your partner. Because maybe one partner, like I was probably in the beginning, probably more enthusiastic about it than you, because I kind of saw my whole child, grown up with these kids, these rich kids on the junior tennis circuit and traveled all over the world. And we were not a rich family. We were like a middle class family, but some of these kids pulled up to the tournaments in limousines and they were 10 years old. Right. I mean, they were moved there from Beverly Hills and Aspen and God knows where else, Miami, all these rich places where, they were rich families. Tennis sometimes attracts that, especially on the tournaments, because it's a very expensive sport to train a child prodigy. And that's most of us were at some level or another. And so I saw that. I trained at their tennis courts at their homes, and I thought someday, I'm a tennis court in my backyard. I remember telling my dad, and he's like, you got a court right down at the park. You got a basketball net, you got a tennis court. What else? What do you want?
And a pond.
Yeah.
You have a pond.
It's free. You don't have to pay for it. Don't be stupid. You can go play at the park. Just like the basketball. I'll put a basketball net in the driveway, Dad. You got a park 2 blocks down the road. Go. He needs the exercise. Get down there and play in the park. But, I saw the dream. So I had more of it than you did, probably. I wanted it more. But then you came along, and then we sort of went back and forth. But my point is, if you would have been adamantly opposed to it, I would never have pushed it past that, just because at the end of the day, now you end up with a decision. And if you're at odds with each other, well, then whatever you invested in is not worth being at odds with each other. Now during the decision process, be at odds all you want.
Right.
I mean, again, we'll talk more about how we fight in business, because we have some fights. I mean, and I think that they're not always fun, but
necessary.
They do work for us.
Necessary.
I mean, because you have to do that,
right?
Because we're the only two people making decisions, and it's like for us, and it's it's great to have the sounding board and the person going back and forth that knows into the business intimately, but there's processes where you're fighting and going back and forth, and we'll do more shows on that because I think there's a real art to it, but at the end of the day, I think you've got to be in alignment with each other because if you're not, and we finally got it, and then we knew we were going to be in for a lot of investment, which we have been, and we're continuing to do that. But we've always been in alignment, so we enjoyed it more. And then we were at odds with each other all the way up until the time where we decided, and then that goes away.
Right.
And the last thing I would say is if you make a decision and it turns out to be the wrong decision, don't go back on your partner and say, hey, you were really the one that wanted this.
Right.
That's really a bad strategy. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah,
be careful.
That's not fighting fair.
That's not fighting fair because
once you make it as a couple,
because some decisions are good and some suck. I mean, it's just we've made good decisions that have been worth a fortune, and others decisions that have cost us a fortune.
Right.
And you don't know which ones are which at the time, but you do the best you can. So. I think that's probably it. So you make them together. Who gets the final? Well, you probably started it out the right way. Technically, the person that's the expert in that area, we defer. We usually defer. So if Dawn says talking to the accountant, and the accountant says we need to do this to get a write-off, pay this off, don't pay this off because of the tax deduction or whatever it is. I go, it sounds right to me. I mean, she'll go, well, I know more about it. Let me just make this, and I do it on my side, and we kind of stick in our lane as much as we can. If we need to fight about it or argue about it or talk about it, we do. But if it comes down to a stalemate, the person with the expertise, I would say, leans. So we just say, okay, do whatever you need to do. Right. And we trust. You got to trust the person.
That's it.
And if you don't trust your partner, you shouldn't be in business with them.
I agree.
At the end of the day.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts?
No, that was good.
I think that covers most of it. Yeah. So, something to think about, something as you go forward with your business. But again, think of your partnership as more important than any capital investment, any kind of decision for that matter you're ever going to make. Because if you're not partners, if you're two people operating a business like a partnership, but not actually a partnership, you don't have a partnership. Right. You have two individuals going different directions, and that's a detriment as opposed to an advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you don't feel that way, then I would rethink it.
Absolutely. Rethink the partnership. Yeah, you're better off on your own or with a different partner.
Right.
In terms of business, anyway. You can say married or you can say together, but with a different business partner.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So good luck with that, and we'll see you on the next show. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.